You have anybody on the phone? Yeah.
Naveen is on.
Sweet. Naveen. And we got a small enough audience. Actually, do you mind if I just ask your names? Start with you. David. Cool.
Benita, Howard.
Benita. Deirdre. Awesome. Thanks, guys. My name's Cole Gendreau. I asked Eric if I could present, so I'm not an expert by any means at all. Definitely just a user. Also, SharePoint isn't my main role. I just kind of liked it a lot and grabbed it and started to work with it. So just gonna kind of share what I've learned, and I dived right in at a really cool time where we started with SharePoint Online, so everything was kind of just easy to work with as far as like the different Power Apps and services. So the title of this session is actually Flow and Power Apps, and it's a lot more than that. I won't do too much talking. We're gonna do a lot of walkthrough and actually setting up a demo. I'll get right into that. So kind of just to preface it though, we're going to touch all of these here in the bottom. This isn't just like the full suite, but we'll actually, work on all these today. So, okay, a little bit about me. I got an MCSA in Office 365 and MCSE. The MCSE was like specifically an Exchange on-prem, so I was like, not as fun as doing the Office 365. I'm very much cloud forward and love like cloud first. So I'm not sure what environments you guys are working in, but and also I've done some Azure certifications as well. So pretty general experience. All right, so we'll dive right into it. Also, I apologize. I'm like just getting over my daughter's got croup, like an upper respiratory infection. So I've got a whole bunch of mucus and stuff. So I apologize if voice is a little bit coarse or anything. Yeah. All right. So the first thing we're gonna do, and I was trying to think because I did something similar to this in our company, but it's not the same, and I didn't want to do the same on purpose, just to kind of like show some variety, and also this example, we're kind of just gonna like go through it quickly. And there's so much that could be done better, or like maybe you could, using your imagination of what we're doing, think of like, oh, this would also be cool and this would be cool. But I kind of want to just go through and just show like an example of how things are done, and kind of from it you'll be able to think of like, oh wow. And definitely I learned this when I kind of rolled out a Power Apps implementation at our company. Was like really architect and think the whole process through before you start building it. Maybe a mix, right? The agile methodology where we can think of a minimum viable product and get that to their hands and then work on it more. But there's definitely a lot of learning as we're building, and would have been, hindsight would have been better to kind of think it fully through out more, but learned a ton. So the first thing that I want to do is actually, let me jump over to Chrome. What we're going to do today is actually create like a demonstration of internal ticketing system. My recommendation would probably be to go with one that's already pre-built because they're much better and easier to go with. So again, this is kind of just an example, but maybe if it is something that you'd very much like to make it specific to your company, you could do something like this. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a Microsoft form, and this is going to be for the end user to be able to submit new tickets. So we'll create just a real basic form. I'll try it again. Last time this guy wasn't working. Yeah. We'll do that. Of course, yeah. All right. So I won't spend too much time on the form. It's pretty basic, but we're just going to call this like maybe IT support request. And if this is an emergency, call 911. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to make this a text. We're going to say your first name, fired. No, it would be nice, but no, you can't. Conditional or like, yeah, if you select this drop down, then displays. At least not that I know of. Can or can't? Oh, yep. Ah. Got it. So they're all in the form, but it just jumped to the place.
You're attending, they say in person or remote.
Mm.
And if you say you're not attending, I say,
Hmm.
don't want to tell me, it's all good. You know, why not?
Sweet. Yeah, that's great. I had no idea, so that's awesome to learn.
Surveys and classes back then. That's one of the only things the surveys really did was bring.
I'll make like a choice. So I'll say, yeah. You know, obviously these will be whatever makes sense in your business. Have your categories, these kind of things. Let's also do choice of yeah, right. This will be a longish or a long answer. Okay. All right, cool. And background.
You just search page for customer compliance.
Yeah, and it, so this is what it looks like from the editor's point of view. And as you saw, I just click share, and it gives you this link. And this is what the end user will see. So it actually looks pretty clean, very easily if you guys haven't used forms. And I'm going to go ahead and actually just go ahead and answer this. So we'll say test user. Mm-hmm. Right.
Design, I initially sent out design form. They were getting
Don't have access. Yeah. So what's really cool about that too is like that link you share will always stay the same. So now if I come back and change a question or change like the drop down answers, that same link you already shared will dynamically update, which is great. So. Oh yeah, good point. So ticket title, this is usually how it always comes in. All right. Submit. So that's awesome. We recorded the answer here in responses. We can already see we have a response, and you can get some nice, like it even does graphs and things like that for you, which is awesome. But what if we actually wanted to record these responses in like a database or something like a SharePoint list? And so for that, we'll go ahead and All right, so I've created my list. I'm gonna go ahead and add some different columns really quickly.
Yeah, that is boring. Like,
Oh,
No, I mean, it's fine on the TVs. It's the projectors.
okay, well,
They're in the same columns to the list that are on the form,
yes and no.
for the most part.
So you're right. It's actually so I'm kind of doing it on purpose too. Of like in the form we had first name, last name, in the list I'm just gonna have name, and we'll use flow to kind of like concat or whatever those two different strings and have it as one, and just to kind of show what you can do. And you can, but then all the responses aren't being recorded in that list. They're just being recorded in the form itself, which we can't then kind of do things with that data once it's just kind of sitting in the form responses.
My stuff in the training form or whatever, just go to the forms on Microsoft.com, I'll do the responses tab. See what the people are saying. Your names aren't in there. That data is in there somewhere, it's not.
Sweet.
keep all of our users in SharePoint. One set. First, and then one set, pull your columns into the form.
So you're using form set on. Do you have that?
She, yeah, she's able to, yeah. They bought the license, anybody that uses SharePoint copy it.
Okay.
They can use it.
Because it's fun when there's an organization, business units, and every unit's doing its own thing, and then no one knows. You own form set over here, and we also need it over here, and we don't know that we have it.
Well, that's, she just got out.
As a consultant, I've been on projects, I was on a project for ComEd, where they wanted us to build they were redoing the electrical grid in Chicago over certain sections suburbs, and moving it underground. It was a whole issue. SharePoint site for the materials and stuff, for the rest of ComEd as an organization. We needed something. They wanted a 10-year term, SharePoint site. Their marketing business unit hired me to come and do this through my consulting firm. You're there. It's not gonna happen. SharePoint sites are 30 days max. SharePoint sites? SharePoint sites have a lifetime of 30 days.
No, that's all right. That's actually fine because I didn't think it was gonna take so long.
How do you do that?
One thing I want to call out here quickly is like a lot of these columns that I fill, like for instance, status, which I do want to govern the values in there. I only want it to be new, in progress, or complete for simplicity's sake. But I didn't do it as a choice here. And that's something that's really easy trap to fall into. And I don't know if I'm necessarily right or wrong, but when I do a choice and then you go into PowerApps later on, it's really nice and easy when you start building with that data. It recognizes, oh, this is a choice column. Let me make it a drop down and fill it with the choice options that are already there. And so you're like, oh, this is beautiful. But then you start running into like when you're filtering on the data set and it says, oh, I don't like to filter on a choice column. I need a plain text column. I'm not going to be able to filter on that. So it's like you run into those kind of things all the time. So I found that I govern my data, like what's going to be inputted at the form level or at different levels, and the SharePoint list itself actually is just plain text and a lot of the times because that queries really well. Correct. Mm-hmm.
I've seen that.
PowerApps doesn't like to, yeah, there's,
I've seen SharePoint get things.
yeah, if you look
It's
up,
like the phone works for-
exactly,
The info pad too.
right.
The old
and which commands you can delegate. So like the filter command you can delegate, or like when you're and by delegate I mean like having SharePoint do the filtering rather than pulling data into PowerApps and having PowerApps do the filtering. You can only delegate certain commands to the SharePoint side, and that comes really important. Not in this demo, but like for example, in our company, we're doing this for new leads, and we're tracking leads rather than IT tickets. And yeah, every salesperson only has like 50 leads. Okay, sweet. Next thing we know, we have 80,000 items in the SharePoint Online Library, and PowerApps is only going and grabbing 5,000 records. And then I'm doing a filter, and it's showing no results for something that has this value. And I look at the list, like I see it right there. So the solution to that was like actually defining my filter on the PowerApp side. Yeah, making sure I pull only what I need rather than trying to pull all data and then filter within PowerApps.
Does that explain why you're using forms to create PowerApps to create forms?
No, actually today in the company that I rolled this out in, the entry is done in PowerApps. And I basically just rather than even though it's a free choice field and it didn't recognize that it's a drop down, I made it a drop down and I hard coded in my options that I want there. So I'm governing it in the Power App manually rather than through a form or something like that. Power Apps, and we'll see it actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think there's one clarification. Microsoft Forms is a tool option
Yep.
for creating forms. PowerApps is also an option for creating forms.
Let me just say, like Microsoft Forms is a way to collect data. There's a way to collect data here, and there's a way to wherever your data source is, and then Flow is really good at saying connect me to data sources, and whether you even connect to multiple, and it can take a little bit from here and a little bit from here and combine it and push it down the line. It's really nice. So yeah, Forms is a great way to like funnel in data, but you can also funnel in data through Power Apps. It has a way that users can do entry and hit submit and create items on SharePoint lists and things like that.
So I always say like Microsoft Forms is kind of that beginner level form tool. So if you want to create a form and see how far you can go, Microsoft Forms is a good place to start. It doesn't do everything PowerApps can do. PowerApps can do anything powerful.
Yeah.
You know, and then but those two tools
Definitely.
are able to collect the data. From there, you can use Flow to basically do everything.
Yep. So let's see here. Moving on from, we now have a way of data entry, and we have our SharePoint list. Let's go ahead and use Flow, and let me close all these Google stuff. Awesome, thank you. All right, so when you're creating a flow, there's different flow types, right? Like scheduled flow, so just on a, and I think it's like when you're on the free tier, 15 minutes is the smallest increment that you could have it query a list or whatever your data source is. An instant flow is something that you can trigger manually. So if you like want to push a button and have it go check the status of things or whatever you want to do. In this case, we're going to do an automated flow because we have a trigger, and that trigger is a new form entry, a new submission. So we'll call this flow the new IT request. And it's actually the very first option that it gives us, kind of funny. The first option is when a new response is submitted. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And you can see on this trigger, it's going to ask us which form. So let's choose the one that we had just created. Yeah, later on we will. You know? So what we just did, we said trigger, okay, all of a sudden a new item's created. And what do we want to do? Let's say we just dove right into an action, like send an email. So let's see, like, for example, I want to put some values in the body. What values do I have available to me? Under this gray bar, it says when a new response is submitted. So from this action, this is the only data I have. And if you look when I highlight over, it says it's a unique identifier of the response. So it's kind of weird. I wish it kind of just like got the response for you automatically, but you actually want to add an action. I'm going to search for forms and choose the forms. I think they call it a provider. And then here's one action that you can do with forms. It's called get response details. So I'm going to get the response details. I'm going to select which form and the response ID, the unique identifier of the response. Well, luckily I have that unique identifier from this first event that happened. So perfect. Here it is. I'm going to plug that in. And so now all of a sudden it's going to get all of those details. I'll drag this into there. So what do I want it to do? Remember what I want it to do. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is actually right here under control, there's different controls you can use. I'm going to use a condition. So this is like a two-option control. We'll use a switch later on, which lets you set multiple controls. But basically, I'm going to choose a value. And the value that I want to choose is that one that I let them, maybe it's a mistake asking them if it's urgent or not, but I'm asking them if it's urgent. So if it's equal to yes, so if yes, I'm going to go here, and I want to send an email to the IT manager. Example, I'll be the IT manager. And the subject is going to say, all caps, urgent. And I'm going to say first name. Okay, so here's the thing as well now. So now that we've done this get response details, we now have all of the details of that response, and specifically the response that we submitted that unique ID for. So now, like when I'm in this send email, which we just were a second ago, and I click into body, and okay, what values can I include here? Now I've got under this get response details bar all of the different kind of variables that are available to me. So I'm going to pull in the value that they submitted for first name. I'm going to put a space. I'm going to put in last name, and I'm going to say, you know, has submitted urgent. And then you could do whatever you want in there. You know, you could say the subject, call it ticket title, and you could say, you know, the description of the issue. Boom, we'll leave it at that. And then we'll go ahead and just move on to the next step. So again, I'm just leaving the if no blank because if it's not urgent, let's just proceed down the flow. I'll go ahead and go ahead, yeah.
Identifier. Do you have to turn anything on?
No, I was actually kind of like didn't know how it was gonna work. For forms, it was default. I didn't have to do anything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even for SharePoint, it pulls ID, which I believe is like a default column. That's a number, increasing number column. Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So again, I'm going to search for SharePoint, right, like I did forms before, and I'm going to choose SharePoint here as the provider. Now all of a sudden, there's like all of these different actions that I can do as under the SharePoint provider. So yeah, sure enough, I'm going to do create an item. So I'm going to specify my SharePoint site and specify the correct list that we want, the one that we just created. So the title column, which is our mandatory column, I renamed it to ticket title. Again, from our up in the flow. So again, like anything that happens up in the beginning of the flow is always coming down, and you can use that data. So I'm going to take that response details, and the ticket title will be exactly that, what they had submitted as the ticket title. Requester, I'm going to do first name, space, last name. Again, that was just to kind of show that like it doesn't necessarily have to be one for one. You can kind of do whatever you want, and you can even do first name, last name, blah blah, and it's going to put first, you know, their whatever they responded, and then the hard coded text. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's very, there's actually very, had a guy go on and compare
Mm. So this is one that I also want to point out. Like, you don't always necessarily have to use the values that are coming in. You can also say, like, so for status, I happen to have the default value on the SharePoint list itself to new anyway, which will solve it. But let's just say, you know, it's not, because perhaps it's you have a conditional earlier that says, you know, if this and then that, and you want different defaults. So it's an easy way to have different defaults. But in this scenario, yeah, I want the default to be new for status. Yeah, that's a good point. I have a separate flag for urgent. I like to keep them separate. And there's also fields that we won't put a value in yet. There's nobody assigned to this case yet or things like that. And this is one that's really cool. I wanted to show you guys this as well. So in that form, we asked for these certain questions. We never asked for their email address, but it was already collecting that data when the person navigated there and submitted the form. Again, because they only accessed that form because they already signed into their Microsoft account. So it automatically then pulled in like responders' email submission time, so we can see exactly when they submitted that form. But I'm gonna go ahead and just use the responders' email and store that now with the ticket. All right, great. So again, just to recap, the trigger response is submitted. The first thing we did was got the details of that response. The next thing we did, we had a conditional where it said, you know, is this urgent, yes or no? And if it is, go ahead and first thing, send an email to the manager. I'm going to minimize this, minimize this condition. Here it is. And then we moved on and we created a new item. And the last thing I'll do is this one quickly. Send an email here too. Again, this is super cool because I can, this is properties that I'm getting from the item I just created, but I'm gonna go down here and use the responder's email to send the email to, and I'm gonna say ticket received. That's fine. And here. Again, obviously you could put in the values that are from earlier in there. So. Yeah, exactly. And this flow will run per every, you know, unique one entry, one flow per entry, I guess. Yeah, so this flow I specifically wanted to, and we'll do that. We have two flows, and we're gonna create it right now. So let's jump into that. So I'm just gonna save this one. No, I like the questions. So you can like share your flow with other people as well, and so you guys can collaboratively, like this dashboard right here will show you the runs and the success and the errors, and if there is a failure, you can click on it. It shows you exactly, like graphically in the flow, what happened. It's pretty easy to troubleshoot. It's definitely helpful. And let's create one more flow, and automated from blank. And we're going to call this update ticket. The first one is for any new, like a new ticket. So anytime a submission is received, go through this flow, and it's basically just creating the SharePoint item, and now it's in SharePoint. So we have this. Actually, let's. Yeah, let's leave it here now, and I'm going to say. Neither. Well, both. Neither. The manager will edit in SharePoint just for ease of demo. The IT person will edit in PowerApps. Which PowerApps will update SharePoint? Right. Oh, we haven't. What was that, sir? Yep, we're getting there. No, you would do it. You'd probably build a PowerApp app for them and let them filter the current tickets by requester. you know, or yes and no. It, yeah. Again, yeah, exactly. Yep.
Show me all my responses.
Yep, that's exactly, and there's actually for that reason that I ditched the form for new entry and did it right in PowerApps, because if they're going to be looking at their entries and editing their entries in PowerApps, let's just have them submit them in PowerApps as well. Although to be honest, PowerApps' performance could be better, so sometimes like form is nice if you have people that are want to just. All right, so we created that first flow, and we'll demo that real quick. So we have ticket title. This is going to be email is broken, and this happened today. Email, perfect. Of course, urgent. All right, so that was urgent. So the manager should be getting an email. Let's see here. Can't remember the exchange URL. So this is kind of funny if anybody works with like DNS and email. We actually use Google now, so our public MX record points to Google. But when you're doing things in Microsoft, it doesn't hit that public DNS, so it actually routes still to my Exchange mailbox, which is kind of funny. All right, so we got again right here at 6:59. We submitted that form, so myself as the manager, when we put that in there, I got that email. Subject says urgent. This is first name, last name, has submitted an urgent issue. Subject, this text right here is what we had put in that form. And because I was also the submitter, I got the email saying thank you for the ticket. And also now if we come and look at that SharePoint list, you should hopefully see the item. And there it is. So that's what the first flow is doing for us. Let's go ahead and quickly create another flow. And we're going to call this update IT request. And we're going to say when it's right here on the top as well for SharePoint, when an item is created or modified. It's a good question.
So when an item is created or modified.
Created or modified, yeah.
Modified, or will it be confused?
You could get it, like that's when you start to have to like think about okay, does it have just modify? That's OneDrive, yeah. Property zone. Yeah. Where did there we go. And I have to think about like what did we just do on the last form? Like potentially we could merge the two flows. Again, this is where like I'm not going to lie, I'm not an expert at all, and maybe I'm not even doing it. Like we don't need two separate flows, but rather combining them into one, because you do only get, I think it's 30,000 flow runs per month, and this seems like a crazy, but when you have like 80,000 leads in there and somebody like does a bulk upload of 20,000 and that flow runs 20,000 times. Yeah. Just a loop, right? Yeah.
If you put this on the new
If you had like conflicting flows, two separate flows that said if an item is modified, change the and the status is, you know, and the favorite color is blue, change it to red. And you have another flow that says if an item is modified and the favorite color is red, change it to blue. Those could potentially just keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Yeah, maybe. When I did this example earlier and actually have this kind of set up the same way at the company I'm at now, knock on wood, it's actually like worked as I expected of just the modifying there. Like doesn't seem to be conflicting, but yeah, it's a good point. Definitely be careful of that. Let me go ahead and specify this list. All right, so same kind of thing actually. The item is modified. We have to actually go get the, not items plural, we just want singular. There we go, get item. So again, like we don't have all of the properties of that SharePoint item yet. The only other thing we have is the ID. But in this this action that we're doing right now, the get item will pass through that ID, and then luckily in the next step, because we're getting all of the item properties here, anything that we're going to do down now further in the flow has all of those item properties. So we're going to do a condition. Click Control and Condition, and I'm going to say is assigned to so if it's not assigned to anybody, I'm going to go over here to yes and say oh, good point. Yep. Thank you. So a switch is pretty much like a conditional, like a yes, no, but you can do multiple values. And so I'm going to take it on the status. Yeah, that may have been what I did, and that's exactly what we will be doing. Yeah, and so I'm expecting this flow to start when somebody's changing something, and it's basically going to go down and say, okay, first things first, is this assigned to anybody? And if it's not, let me go ahead and think about this. Actually, I think we do want it to be it's not equals to so it is assigned to somebody. If it is assigned to somebody and the status new, we're gonna update the status. So again, this is right where we get into the update item, like you had called out before. Update item. So I think like you may be able to leave blank. It does have this required, but it already has a value. But sometimes I'll just do it like that anyway. But like these other ones, it already has an answer for urgent and all that. So I'm just gonna leave it. But the one thing I want to do is change the status to in progress.
Down there at the bottom, so I don't know the details. It says specify one or more expressions which must be
So
that would resolve the issue, right? Because
easily, yeah.
let's say you want this to run only above, not what it's full expression. Last one. question here that says item was created, but some value in the item is not set.
Yeah, default, maybe you have a column that default value is 0, but your new item flow sets that to 1. And so that the condition on here would say that column needs to be a 1. If it's still a 0 and it hasn't gone through that new item flow, then don't touch it. That would actually work pretty well. That's smart. Yeah. You'd probably just keep building on the first flow. No, that's cool though. Yeah. So, all right, where are we? We basically, yeah, if it's not assigned to anybody, or it is assigned somebody, but the status is new. Basically, as soon as it's assigned somebody, I'm gonna just say it's in progress. I'm not waiting for the person to take it. It's in progress as soon as it's assigned somebody. We're gonna do another case where this says if the status is equal to in progress. Yep, we want to
Sorry, we'll probably have for the next hour.
yeah, we're good. Okay, cool.
I'll ask them about that.
All right. So if it's in progress, again, from the SharePoint list with get item, we recorded the requester's email address. So luckily we have that in our SharePoint item. I'm going to use that as the who to send the email to. The subject, I'm just going to grab their ticket title. Update, something like that. And the body is going to be, we had created a column called IT response. So again, I'm expecting that when this item is modified, the IT person's probably putting a response. It's going to record that response. Ah, thank you. Ooh, perfect. Yeah, that would break it for sure. So thank you. And the last one will just say if it's complete. You know, we'll send an email saying it's complete. This isn't, what do you, different, oh, right, yeah, I can get, So I had that issue where like, we wanted to do conditionals, you know, if assigned to Nancy, then email her manager and do this. But the Nancy, we had 80 of them. So I was like, how am I supposed to do 80 different? And I did. I built out a, before they even had switch, it was just condition. And I maxed out the condition. And then if it's not any of these, continue on and hit this conditional tree. And if it's not any of those, and that didn't work so well. So yeah. Can you? Yeah.
Hover over one of those ellipses, copy activity.
Nice.
Oh, that's a huge time saver.
What's it called? There's, I think,
All right, sweet.
it just came in August.
All right. So now we're going to do something exciting. We're going to build a Power App. And actually, the first thing I want to do, I'm going to submit a bunch of responses. So like,
Not been working, you know? Those people that you months later and it says send email.
Yeah, exactly.
What am I sending? Who and why?
Yeah.
Then you have to analyze that whole lot too. You're like, okay, I'm sending email to this. Okay, then you can kind of maybe
Alrighty. So I was gonna build like two different Power Apps, one for the supervisor and one for the, IT worker. But instead, I'm just gonna do one, and the supervisor will instead come in here and just do work from SharePoint. Maybe we built him a nice view that only shows certain columns, and he's gonna be the one to assign it to people. Again, the reason why I would think about building a Power App here instead is because the assign to, I didn't do it as a choice field. It's a free text field. So I don't want supervisor to, fat finger name and things like that. So ideally, I'd like to have a ability to control what values he's selecting, and I could do that from Power Apps. Just for the sake of time, he's going to work right out of SharePoint. Yeah, they never go to the list. I only have a few power users that and again, that comes from just me jumping right into it, learning. There's nothing preventing the end users because their user account has edit permissions in the SharePoint. There's nothing preventing them from navigating to the list and changing values. Like certain values, I don't allow them on Power Apps, like assigned to. I don't want them to change their assigned to. But if they made their way to the list, they then could change that value. So there may be a better way of doing that and kind of securing. And it may be yeah, I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, you don't want to, you could do it with permission. Yeah, permissions on.
When I looked into permissions, it doesn't seem like you can have column level permissions. It's list or nothing. Like edit on the list or read. Yeah. So for this one, I went right to the list. I clicked on Power Apps. It's more of just what they can see in Power Apps, and you say, show me the data from this SharePoint list, and select which fields. I'm just kind of deselecting the fields I don't want them to see when they click edit, deselecting the fields. So.
Right.
That's what you can do. Manipulate the user interface.
Yeah.
Right.
But ultimately,
So
yeah.
now, PowerApps is that.
Yep.
We used to create views though. You could find views, you could actually take views out so they could click on it and then put a view in another.
Right.
You also could control what they see. So like you took that column out of that particular view
Mm-hmm.
and then you hide any other views.
Yeah.
You pulled from, they would only have that view to see and they wouldn't see that column.
Right. So you could use this.
That's true. I could lock down my SharePoint so in case they navigate to the SharePoint list, and you could say prevent them from creating a new view and just clicking on that column. Nice.
Let's say you know SharePoint, and you create a view stuff. Users may not know SharePoint. So give them this. This is all they ever know, see with the internet. Behind the scenes, it might be SharePoint. Layer by shell.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When you create it from the list, it basically builds the app for you, which is nice. But there's some things I didn't like, so I kind of ultimately just went to build from blank. It defaults you to a mobile, the portrait view, and I wanted to have it both so our inside sales team could use it on their computer or on an iPad. So I actually have two different versions. But the out of the box, and you're on the list and you click create an app, it does do a really good job of creating the app for you. And so that's what I just did just now. Although again, to start from blank isn't much more difficult. In fact, I recommend maybe going to a list and clicking create Power App, and then just kind of clicking around and see, and then you can kind of figure it out and recreate it yourself. Basically, anything in this Power App that you click on, you'll see on. Yep, on the left-hand side, you can see the objects in this app. So what I just clicked on here is this gallery, and you can see the cursor kind of selected the whole gallery, and adjust its properties either here on the right hand side, its layout, or if it's visible, or you can come up to here and choose all of those different properties here. So I find myself, so here's visible, and the value is true, as we can see here, and I'm going to turn it off and the value will go to false. So I honestly find myself like half and half. If it's quick and easy, I'll grab it right here, and sometimes I'll just click and find it here and things like that. And it's like anything. So say like this refresh button, it's really just a picture. Or like if I came over to here to insert and I chose insert icon and I made it a check. And so this, right now, the current property that I'm selected on, let's just say it could be color, red. Now we have a red check mark. But the property that I want to change is the on select. So right now it doesn't do anything, but on select I could say, do whatever. Go pull a bunch of data. I started from the list itself and clicked create Power App. But yeah, if you had started right in PowerApps and clicked create new, and I inserted what's called like a gallery. A gallery is like something you can view records. So gallery right here, browse gallery, data source. It automatically selected that data source, but I could just as easily, in fact, we are going to modify this data source, and I'll show you what we'll do. Let me do something else really quick. Absolutely. So right on the list right here, PowerApps, create an app. And I'm actually not too familiar with like customized forms. This stuff is changing so much, and in PowerApps they just created something else called like a portal, and even like while I'm working in the PowerApps, like the whole user interface, it's been about a year since I built it, is like, wow, there's some really cool new things that like are really nice. It'll tell you if you're working with like a text object or some other kind of object. So oh yeah, I am, but to be honest, sometimes those kind of just yeah, it is. Please, you can grab it if you want. Oh yeah, nice. Yep. Let me stop sharing mine. No, nice.
So, the color's not great from back here, but we've got Penny and Percy by P&P Cats. And they have a list of their favorite toys. Which, right now, the only toy in here is a milk crate. Okay? The columns that are here are the title, fun rank, which is the number from 1 to 10, the actual picture. Okay? So when you go to add an item, you get a really boring form where the fun rank defaults to 5 and you can put in 0 or 10 or whatever. So what I want to do is make this a more enriched experience. I'm going to do PowerApps, customized forms.
Does this automatically replace the SharePoint view and
It does. And then you can always revert back if you go into list settings, form settings, and you say, go back to the default SharePoint form. Nicole, thank you for letting me do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I forgot this is going to take, it's got to do this thing.
if you default back there, you lose everything you did.
The form still exists. It's just like in SharePoint Designer, it's there. It's just not being used.
Okay.
You can delete the form or not.
Okay.
Okay. So now, you can kind of see my form, right? So you've got the title field, which is just a text box. It says milk ring. The fun rank is, again, a text box for a number. There's a picture preview and all that. I want to do something very simple. But I want to take this fun rank field and change it. I lost my.
I'll click on the actual data card or the text value. Oh, maybe you have to.
When I initially opened it, had that fields panel, it was taking up like all this.
Oh, click on gallery. You want to choose your fields?
Oh, edit fields, there we go, thank you. Yep. So I'm gonna take this, now see, these are certain data types. So, yeah, I wish this looked better, I apologize. I'm gonna select fund rank and the control type, edit number, I'm gonna change to a star rating option. All right, and I'm gonna go to file, I'm gonna click save. I'm doing this real quick for the sake of time, but just to show you that you can quickly, easily customize a form, you know, based on what PowerApps allows you to do. Let's go to this list now, let's look at our employees.
Counted on whether you forms, PowerApps or forms. I know, they just give us too much. This is too much. Well, it is.
Now, if I edit my military employee,
Nice.
now for my rank, instead of putting in a number 1 through 10, I can pick from the star rating. Right? Ideally, yeah.
Oh, something.
Not really easy for me. It may need to be a 1 through 5 option.
Something else in there, had to maybe they put in as a number, so you can. So, yeah, I mean.
Oh, yeah, so 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5.
Okay.
So, but, you know.
So you can really spruce it up.
The thing actually, it's what gets really cool too is like, it's all just big Excel expressions or formulas and oh, okay, gotcha. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna try to kind of speed it up just a little bit here, but we're doing okay. So I wanted to add a screen really quickly, and actually you guys will be able to see kind of how easy it is to start from blank. I'm gonna take this one and bump it up to the top really quick. If it's the very first screen on this list, it'll be the first screen the app opens. I'm gonna go to insert and insert a gallery, do vertical. So it's just got some sample data, exactly what that items, gallery sample. I want to go get data that's already in a SharePoint list, and it's called the IT support requests. And the specific column that I want to grab is going to be assigned to. And do this, selecting the gallery and choosing edit fields. Actually, layout first. I don't want a picture in the title and the subtitle. I just want one property, and the property that I want is assigned to. It doesn't make too much sense right now, basically, because that that SharePoint list, the assigned to column, there are no values, so they're all blank right now. That's fine, and we'll do something else really quickly too. We'll insert a picture. And there we go. We'll add a label. And it's got some nice things like I'll center, justify the text, and align it center. Cool. All right, that looks pretty good. What I'm going to do right now actually is act as that IT supervisor. And oh, we've got some tickets. Let me go ahead and assign these. So I'm gonna assign this to Bill, and I'll assign. Oh, you know what? How do I do that? Yeah, that's fine. It'll work.
Let's say you had to pull down the pipes and
Uh-huh.
problems.
Yeah, we kind of do have that too. We collect the system or the
You had a particular type of auto-populate line to?
yeah,
Type of problem?
absolutely. Yep,
Okay.
exactly. And we kind of what did we what do we do in Flow that we auto email requester. Oh yeah. We didn't do too much. The only conditional we did was if urgent, email the manager saying an urgent was submitted. But yeah, absolutely, yeah. If they submitted email, the assigned to value will be, you know, Jose or whoever that handles email or something like that. And all right, so again, it's a little bit hard to tell because this is, if I refreshed, it would now pull those values. Okay. This plus arrow we can see on select. I want it to actually I'm going to create a variable, and so I use a set command. I'm going to call it the IT person because they're going to be choosing their name. And the value that'll define that is going to be what they select. So actually, I'm going to change this gallery really quickly. Instead of being the assigned to, because unless I did like I think, unique, so it doesn't pull like 2 results for Bill if the Bill has 2 entries. I'm just going to hard code these in here. Yeah, thanks to Ted and John.
Is that
It's a great noise, isn't it?
real? Deterrent?
Right?
That dog.
Ah, here we go. Okay. Gallery. Alrighty, there we go. So yeah. So when you click this arrow, it's going to set this variable that I called IT person to the value of whichever one you select. And the next thing I want it to do is to then navigate to the page called Browse Screen 1. And we'll do a transition of like fade. Boom. All right, so what we should see now, if we go ahead and hit play, I'm going to select Jess and click that. So when we clicked on that button, it set the variable and it just navigated us to that browse page. Anywhere, mobile phone or your computer. Yeah, or from the web. You can do it from the web or actually run it as like an app on the phone. So one thing you can do is because I created that variable, I click File and come over here under Variables. And set makes a global variable, so I'll click on global, and boom, there we go. So we have a variable called IT person, and the value is Jess. So pretty easy. But what it allowed us to do is have like an entry screen where we can set a variable, and now we can use that variable later on. Say maybe we're filtering the list to where assigned to equals the variable. So let's go ahead and do Bill because he's got a couple entries. Again, if we look at that variable, it should be Bill now. Global. There we go. It's Bill, which is cool. And let's go ahead and click into this gallery and look at items. All right. So because we did a pre-made app, it kind of like set the items for us, and it built us using a search bar. So it's kind of saying, hey, filter the this list by whatever they've entered in this search box. So we'll leave that we're gonna add another filter. When you're working in PowerApps, it actually like tells you up top what it's expecting. Is like super helpful as you're working through it. So I'm gonna also add one where they assign to equal to my variable, which is called IT person. So now that IT person could be whichever value you selected before, this is going to automatically now filter all my requests where assigned to equals that variable. And so because the current value of that variable is Bill, if we go to that list, we should see that that's the only one that has Bill assigned to it. Yep, Betty Sue. And that's why he sees Betty Sue. Again, though, if like yeah, so something you have to do, because I added that first screen and it's not really there by default, we do something like, you know, insert icon, like a home button. We'll use a, I don't know, trash can. And we'll leave it right there and have a terrible color, but we'll say on select, navigate to screen one. I didn't name it, so it's just, that's another thing as well, is it's nice to start naming your screens, and you're like, if I added in this home button and I just left it as icon 2, it's nice to rename it to like home button. Helps you a lot later. So I'm going to navigate to screen. I'll just leave it at that. And now I literally just built a home button. If I click on the trash can, it takes us to the home. And again, if I choose John, see who John has. John Johnson got assigned John got assigned John Johnson's ticket, so I'm going to choose John. And boom, it shows us now that ticket. So what was that? Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, that trash can was net, and this is screen one. Icon 2. Oh, like up here it showed icon 2. Can you see it here, you're saying, or oh, gotcha, right here. Yeah, you can see it's under browse screen. Screen 1, these are all the options on screen. This is screen 1. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. And so right. Yeah, exactly. Icon, yeah. Yeah, and luckily PowerApps is like super powerful. When you rename it, it goes into all of your functions or expressions, and updates your code in there to the new name, or else you'd have a whole bunch of broken like functions and stuff. So let's see here. Something that's also really cool is like, let's say I choose this gallery, and this very top box, which is called Title 1. The text that's in it is this item dot ticket title. Just as an example, let's go ahead and do like so always this Title 1 box, which contains the current item and this property of it. I'm going to not choose the text property of it, but let's go ahead and choose the color. And this is where I think it gets really cool too. So let me make sure I don't choose one that's urgent. Okay, it's fine if it is, whatever. So for color, I'm going to do an if. If urgent, yes. Red, else. And boom. So let's go ahead and, this ticket must be urgent. Let's go home and choose Jess. This ticket is not urgent, so the title is black. You can do all kinds of things, like especially with like visible. So like for example, the one I have at work, like if urgent is yes, I have a whole bunch of like fire pictures, and the visible property of those is set to, if urgent is no, visible is false. If urgent is yes, visible is true. And then easily, if it's true, you have all these fire things up there or whatever it is. So you can kind of like have a lot of fun with like, it doesn't have to be necessarily like the urgent field itself that's changing, but you can change anything based on the value of this and all kinds of stuff. You get kind of crazy sometimes. And they love it too. Like, but exactly that, like making that title red if it's urgent is something that's so powerful. Yeah. Yep.
So if you were to open up PowerApps app on Windows.
Yep. So let's go ahead and we'll finish this off really quickly too. Because we chose from the form, it like pretty much built everything for us. So if I click on this, it's going to take us into what's called like a view form, I believe it's called, or a browse gallery maybe. Yeah, detail form. And when you click edit, it brings you into an edit form. But all those things you can kind of do yourself if you just clicked on edit, detail form, and you choose where you get the things. It's not too bad once you start diving into it also. But in this detail form, I'm going to edit the fields, and they don't necessarily need to see the assigned to maybe because it's assigned to them, and they don't need to see, I don't know, I guess they need to see all that. But you can see how we can remove things right there pretty easily. One thing I am going to change though is the edit form, which they get to this by clicking that. If I click on this edit button, you'll see on select edit form and navigate to the edit screen. So it's going to take me here and edit this form. Here, we definitely don't want them being able to change the assigned to. So they're just going to remove from themselves. And we don't want them to change the urgency, and we don't want them to change the which system the person said it was to do. And we don't want them to change the date of the incident. We don't want them to change the requester. We don't want them to change the title. Basically, they should just be able to change the status, yeah, and the response. In this case, like I won't do it in this demo, but unlock so I can edit it. This is a free text box. If in SharePoint we had created that column as a choice, it would have recognized that and automatically made this a drop down, just like, oh, this is so cool. But then when you start to get into like when I was writing that formula where status equals, and as soon as I hit the equals, it's all red and it says, nope, you can't filter on a choice column. You go, oh man. So, but they're changing that stuff all the time. In fact, I thought I saw a tweet saying that you can now filter on choice columns. I was pretty excited, but I was messing with it tonight. But anyway, you could click into here and change this. You'd actually probably want to just delete this object. Like Eric was saying, you could insert control. Control. Maybe it's input, and you'd make it a drop down, and you'd hard code in your own options, and they would align with like your desired statuses of new, in progress, or so you're kind of just like enforcing it here manually by making a drop down. But we'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and hit File, Save, and publish this thing. Again, what's like so cool with PowerApps, or I don't think I said this, but and they also just released every time you publish, you can put release notes, which is nice. But let's say you tell all your users, hey, start using the Power App. You can get to it by going to PowerApps.com and clicking on Apps in my org, or you can download the PowerApps. The PowerApps app, yeah, exactly. You can download the PowerApps app on your phone, so it's on iOS and Android, and it kind of opens that app, and then within there you open your Power App, which is like insanely nice if you ever have to deal with like packaging up an app and trying to publish to the App Store. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The cool thing with your phone too is you can actually click Create Shortcut. And instead of having to click on the PowerApps app and then click on the app, it creates a square on your home screen. And if you upload an icon for your app, it uses that icon. It looks just like a legit app. When you click on it, it quickly opens PowerApps and goes right to your app, and it's pretty smooth. It's really nice. That's the beautiful thing I was just gonna say is you can literally, if exactly they don't need to update it on their phone, they don't even need to reinstall. When you click publish, the next time they if they close and the next time they reopen that app, it's the newest version. So it is incredibly easy. And also you can just go to powerapps.com and just hit the refresh button and it's so um let's see.
So pretend this is his phone, because that's
All right.
vehicle.
I just got the S10 or the Note 10. And then I've got an old 6S.
Have you done any sharing from my,
No.
I got stuff really nicely now where you can join the meeting right off on your
Nice.
phone. It shows your phone screen with this.
So I was thinking about that. And you'd also do like on your Windows 10 PC, you can make present to this phone, and then but I figured this built-in the app, PowerApps app, kind of looks similar. But anyway, yeah, here it is on the phone as well. This is the one we just built. In fact, yeah, if you'd like to check it out. Um,
Wrap up soon.
Absolutely cool. We're actually pretty much done. The one last thing I was going to show, so we'll consider this app pretty much done. Basically, it just allowed me to select Bill or if maybe I'm Jess, and it's only now going to show Jess's tickets, and we can click into here, and we can provide a response. This is
I'm going into your
Cool.
private stuff.
Oh, that's all right. So, yeah. All right. So yeah, I literally it was instantaneous. In the app, I just now clicked into a lead and or a ticket, and I changed the status to complete, and I put in a response. So it literally updated the list like instantly as I did it in the app. It's going to trigger those flows that are then going to email the user saying, hey, your request is complete, and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's gonna be a flow that then reassign, and they created flows that just keep reassigning to each other. Oh, there we go. So you actually got to download the Power BI desktop app to first pull in the data. Once you then pull in the data, you can publish it and use it on the web. It's kind of a weird deal. I don't know if you mess with it too much. The whole between Power BI desktop, Power BI in the web, and yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I won't spend too much time at all. I literally just want to grab the data and show you guys really quickly what you can do with it. It's on we're on Business Essentials, Business Premium. You get it all. Power BI, PowerApps. Yeah. Oh, right. They get you. It's free to download and free to view a report, but if somebody else views it and you want to share it to them, then it requires a license. So basically, kind of a. Power BI, if you haven't used it, is super nice as far as you don't have to just take one data set, but I can take, get data from a file, from a SQL database, from Azure. I just chose online services, and I'm going to choose SharePoint Online List. But you can take data from all these different places and then filter it and put it in a big pot and with it there. All right, so I just put in the URL to our SharePoint site, and I'm going to choose the list we want. I'm going to load the data. I'll show you guys too, kind of the app I built for our company. It's nothing that I'm like super proud of, but it's not too bad. So it's called Leo, leads entered online. Basically, like people used to track their leads on their own spreadsheet. So now we're saying, hey, there's one spreadsheet, our SharePoint Online list, and you guys all are going to put new leads on there via this app, and you're going to manage your leads. So where before, like, you know, let's say you can do cool things too, like my leads. It says, you know, filter this whole SharePoint list where assigned to equals, and I took like the current logged on user and kind of mess with the text there anyway. So it automatically just pulls my leads, but you can say filter and filter in certain ways. I kind of had to do this again because this is on like 80,000 leads in there. Let me just search by assigned to and choose like this Amber Beatty's leads.
About 5 minutes. You gotta go.
Cool.
You gotta be out.
Just Power BI.
PowerApps. So here's an example, right? And I added a new label here that says, you know, if the status is 1, you display the status and do things with a color and things like that and stuff like that. All right, so we're in Power BI 2, and I'm going to take assign to and just going to drop it on there. And let's go ahead and make this a bar chart. And I'll take that. And we want to take the status. See, we want counted assigned to. No, we don't want that. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so we'll leave that. We'll also take like system, put that in a separate one, and we'll make this a pie chart. Take system, make that the values. So again, like this column chart is super boring because everybody has one case assigned to them, and there's only one that's complete. But like, let's say Jess, let's assign her one more, and we were two more. The ladies always work harder than the guys. It's true. And there we go. So we can see that Jess, you know, has 3 cases and 1 complete. The powerful thing about this is like, it's not just an Excel where I took the static data, it's looking at that SharePoint list. So as much as that SharePoint list is changing, this report is changing. And when you build these reports, actually in PowerApps, you can click on Insert Power BI Graph. So within your app, you could have like these great visuals of the data itself. So that's it. So what did we do? We created a form to receive in data. We created a SharePoint list to store that data. We used Flow to automate an email to the manager if it's urgent. All of this automation, we created an item in that list with the data that we got from that Flow. Again, you could have created an item in that list with data from Flow plus other data. I'm not sure what you would grab, but you know, the sky's the limit. We automatically emailed the requester when it was received. We then created a Power App for people to go in and look at those tickets and manage them. And then we created Power BI to kind of look at the data. So. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It was a great audience to start with. Yeah.